The Graduate, based on the 1963 book of the same name, follows the aimless summers of a young man, Benjamin, and his worries about his future in a post-war materialist society. He finds liberation from his anxieties through a carnal relationship with his schoolmate's mother, Mrs. Robinson, who is a close friend of the family, and also, I assure you, the most attractive of his parents' friends. However, he didn't pursue this woman, but vice versa. As Benjamin is pretty awkward and unassuming, sleeping with one of his parents' friends wasn't exactly on his bingo card for the summer. From Mrs. Robinson's point of view, this is an escape from an empty marriage with her husband. For Benjamin, sex with this woman satiates his desire, masculinity, but it's ultimately an act of defiance against the society, where acts of service from those around him are just to impress each other and not Benjamin. We can see this in the scene where Benjamin receives a diving suit. From the POV shot, we can see how Benjamin is being gawked at by the family circle, while their muffled voices egg him on. We also follow his heavy breathing. He's anxious about this. Once he enters the pool, his vision becomes murky and unclear, demonstrating the separation from the family is disorientating, yet he can find solitude in the silence away from the noise of it all. The lack of empathy and disconnect from his parents also play into his difficulty of having a normal romantic connection to those his own age.
I think you are filth. I think you are scum. You are a degenerate!
Love exposure shows how acts of sinning can be an escape for the youth, while a fragile parental framework leads to an obsessive desire for a more meaningful connection. Yu grows up in a Catholic household, which to an extent provides him with purpose from a young age. His mother's passing, however, changes Yu's perspective significantly. One of his earliest memories of his mother shows her telling him to find a woman like Mary in the future. As this is one of Yu's core memories, this is the inciting incident that holds this 4-hour-long film together. His father's reaction to this tragic event is to be entrenched further into his religious practice, which grants him with the position of priesthood. This is just before Cowrie enters his life, a rambunctious woman who challenges his position of priesthood, as she will fulfill his desire for a connection since his wife's passing. His father falling from grace reflects upon his son, who he frequently brings into confession for him to relay his sins. As Yu tends to be a fairly honourable person, he must manufacture sins for himself. This turbulent upbringing and need for attention leads him on the path of the deviant. Heading back into 1967, comparably, Mrs. Robinson is the woman Benjamin finds the need for defiance in. When the lights are turned off in their room, Benjamin asks her a question about her interests. He is tired of renting out the same hotel room each night for sex and nothing else. However, she shields herself from these personal questions, as Benjamin was the one to be seduced. He wants to gain some insight into Mrs. Robinson by getting to know her, as she knows much more about Benjamin's life story than the other way round. Asking about her history as a student, she obscured the fact that she had to get married since she got pregnant while she was at college. Mrs. Robinson has had the sudden need to save face to the public since she was Benjamin's age, displaying why the affair liberates her, and also her liking to Ben in particular. As for Yu's connection to the older generation, he develops his need to sin initially to communicate with his father, but also to find his calling in life. As he ends up hanging out with other undesirables, he's recruited by the fringe of Japanese society in the form of upskirt photography. Although this could be handled in a pretty insensitive way, as Yu has not really begun to feel desire in his life besides his imaginary Madonna, these aren't really acts for his own enjoyment, as much as they are a way to express his sin in a skillful way. This shows how his perversion develops as a way of feeling comfortable with his father's disappointment. The reasons why he does this are to be pitied rather than admired. For a religious analogy, much like in Augustine's Confessions, stealing a pear to eat it wasn't exactly his goal. The act of stealing was what that was desirable. So you may assume in my comparisons that Mrs. Robinson is analogous to Yu's Madonna, but really it's her daughter Elaine. Elaine becomes the object of Benjamin's desire despite his indifference and even suggestion from his parents to date her. However, Benjamin becomes interested in her after his summers of eloping with her mother. Because it is wrong and is firmly against the will of Mrs. Robinson, Benjamin finds pursuing her thrilling. Also a way to stick it to his parents, which he openly says he doesn't even like her that much. This clearly shows how Benjamin is probably not looking for a source of honest love after Mrs. Robinson rejected these advances. There is a clear change in Benjamin here. He is no longer complacent, but in his pursuit of Elaine realises he can't have what he needs with Mrs. Robinson. Well, for Youth's Turning Point, it's a little more complicated. As an upskirt photographer, it has become something he has mastered. He now finds himself at a point where he's at the top of his game, even to the point where his friends start to envy his skill, swinging around a camera like a nunchuck. This notable skill even got him scouted out by adult filmmakers to take part as an actor, but he refuses to do this to the lack of interest in actual sex he has, as physically he, can't get it up. But also there's the whole Maria thing. What initiates Yu's change in focus is spurred on by losing a dare. His forfeit is dressing up as the Lady Scorpion, inspired by the exploitation heroine of the same name. Comparing this to the scene where Benjamin dresses up in the diving suit, this is humiliating, however this is what allows him to meet his destiny. Yu as the Lady Scorpion finds Yoko, his Maria. On this instant he finally finds his sexual awakening, but loses the freedom to sin as he pleases. His persona as a Scorpion fights with Yoko in the street, which does lead to Yoko becoming infatuated with this figure, but not Yu of course though. As for the developing dynamic between Elaine and Ben, start from being a mild affection, to disgust, to kind of confounding in him. Benjamin deliberately does this, in fact, despite his parents' suggestion to date her, but then immediately begins to regret this as Elaine shows why he is acting out the way he is. As she listens to Ben, he realises that she is open to hear his feelings. We can tell she experiences a similar disillusionment with her parents because of this fact, and through the awkwardness and social faux pas, relates to him. The crude persona of the careless ladies' man is cracked, and they both develop an honest connection, something they both are ultimately lacking in both of their lives. As for Yoko, a lot of time is spent setting up her past and her later entrance into the family of Yu, but this film was about 4 hours long. I don't wish to bore you by summarising the whole thing. But however, the most important part is, similar to Benjamin, her attraction to the Scorpion comes from the distaste to adults, like her parents who didn't treat her with any dignity. What distinguishes this film from The Graduate is applying where the character's values and desires originate, with The Graduate using montage and imagery to imply such things. In Love Exposure, we are exposed to it all, and despite the vulgarity of this, it doesn't distract from the emotional core of the film. Benjamin believes that his pursuit of Elaine is out of love, but really it's out of scarcity. Elaine is the only person in his world that can understand the controlling of each of their destinies in order to impress their shallow social groups. The stalking throughout Berkeley not only shows his obsession with Elaine, but also how lost he truly is. Even in terms of shot composition, we see a change from a much tighter framing, like that we see at the start of the film with the neighbourhood crowd clawing away at Benjamin trying to escape the tight frame. Instead now, we see wide tracking shots of Benjamin from a distance, as if we were stalking him ourselves. Comparing this to Yu's insertion into Yoko's life, this seems to come less so from careful planning but from coincidences. It's evident why she is pictured as a Maria, judging by how there is an element of divine intervention in the meeting, although this isn't exactly true, as the planning for their relationship was achieved certainly by Koike for her interest for the new church. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that cult part. However, if you zoom out, of the core of these characters' motivations are found in seeking love based on who can resolve problems arisen by the past. Yu seeks love in Yoko, as she is the object of his hope. Yoko loves the Scorpion, as she respects Yoko as a woman. Koike loves Yu because she expresses love by garnering hate. And finally, Keiko and Tetsu want to be honest with each other whilst retaining their faith. These relationships are based on faith, that they will find their respective needs. Koike is aware of this and uses their faith to her will. The final act shows Ben cling to the future he has hanging by a thread with Elaine. We understand that her marriage to Chet will not only destroy his future, but her parents will be the ones winning. Although we barely see the man, judging by his friends and the few times we see him, he enjoys sports, dresses in a classy manner, and is quite conventionally handsome. He is a model husband. However, Benjamin offers something else, a way out. As bad as he acts, it shows he has no respect for the world as it is, and what it will make him into. He screams her name upon the aisle like some feckless angel, and Elaine follows his cries. The same crowd that were piling in on him at the party, shoving him into the pool, he lashes out with a cross in hand, openly displaying his disrespect to the institutions and polite society that led him to this point. However, the cross for Love Exposure is a little more than what you make it. Christianity in Japan is a minority religion and has historically been known as a rebellious Western religion with plenty of martyrs made from it. Despite the fact the Catholic Church is an institution that upholds a certain level of order over people's lives, in a way, it is against the norm to hold these beliefs. Jesus is cool, just like Kurt Cobain. And as for the new church, they are a manifestation of the need people have for faith when their lives are messy enough, but they have failed to be good people within their own institutions. Cults were, and to an extent still are, a problem in Japan. As Koike takes Yoko in, her own Christian faith is warped. As Yu is not the Scorpion and is trying to keep Keiko as his own selfishly, her speech exemplifies where Yu is wrong. His prophecies fulfill his desire only. Yu joins up with the church to save Yoko and his family. As this is the lowest point, we can assume he's close to following their doctrine out of desperation. His destiny was as much as a lie as Yoko's feelings for the Lady Scorpion. He was the most important piece in the plan, and he went through with it. It is up to him to make this right. After some time, Yu seeks to bomb the new church's headquarters. This comes from a storyline, which I don't really feel like I need to explain in its entirety, but essentially Yu meets a guy who wishes to blow a bunch of people up, and he's like an agony uncle for this adult industry thing. He's putting on a show, and he wants to bomb a bunch of people up, and he tells them not to do it. But the thing is that he gets in contact with them again saying, well, if you do have this bomb, I will use it. So there you go. Anyway, so now he has the bomb in hands, and his grand entrance into the Zero Church, much like the ending of Taxi Driver, the climactic showdown from our protagonist feels both tragic and satisfying. This is the final act in Koike's plan, and she dies with it. However, the true ending we find is within Yoko's power. Yu finding himself at the mental hospital, he is broken by his actions and lives in limbo as the Scorpion. Yoko goes to see him to snap him out of it. In this brief moment, we see both Yu and Yoko accept each other on equal footing. Much like The Graduate, there is no real future to look forward to past this moment. We know that Yu will certainly not be set free by this state again. The characters have found their catharsis, but there is no falling action as there's nowhere to fall to.
I'm at the